All right, so let's get into the meat of today's topic, and this is going to be how to create a safe, strong, but easy to remember password for your kids. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Apetech Podcast. We just crossed over 44 listens and well on our way to 50. Thank you to everybody that has listened or liked our videos and audio versions of the podcast. Super grateful for those first 44 people. Based on the dashboards, we have about 11 people that are actively listening. So thank you very much. Super appreciate it. Super grateful for your attention. I'm hoping that we're providing value to you and that you're enjoying these. You're going to really like today's episode. We have something special in store for you. If there's any questions you may have, or if you just want to get a hold of me, we do have voice messages set up in the description below, so the link is down there. Feel free to give us a call and ask us your questions. We'll try to answer it. If you also want to email me, it's letschat@apetech.me, and don't forget to check us out on social media. So let me put that on real quick. So Apetech TA is where you can mainly find us on Medium. We write blog posts there, Twitter, Instagram, and then of course apetech.me for all of our services that we provide. In this episode, we're going to talk about passwords for kids. Not any kids though, your kids. With most of the students, if not everybody, basically being either some sort of remote setup or having to have some sort of online presence, passwords are super important, right? It's how you utilize a lot of these digital tools. And if your students are anything like my child, then you know that they aren't very good with dealing with passwords. They just simply don't understand the importance of it. And it's also, at least my kid doesn't understand how critical it is to not share those passwords. So if your kids are like mine, their minds are about Minecraft and the Roblox world. Their perspective in life is innocent and pure. They don't understand the perils of the internet. Thus, it is so important to teach your kids about the dangers of the internet. They need to be taught how to utilize this powerful tool in such a way that they are safe. And it all starts with passwords. Well, not really, but for the purpose of this episode, let's assume that passwords should be the one thing that the kids know and learn about the best. Because the passwords are what's really going to set the stage and like the foundation for everything else that they do online with respect to being safe online. Alright, so there's currently some options available on the internet, and I looked at them personally. I wouldn't personally recommend them, but let's talk about a couple of these things. So one of them is called Dino Pass, and this is a tool that allows you to, let me just pull it up real quick for everybody that's watching. Dino Pass. And this is a pretty cool, simple password generator, and you can see it generates a password HotChump62. Now, you are given two options to create another simple password or a strong password. So let's click on the strong password. Okay, so this came up with White Steam 34 with the E in white being replaced with the 3. Now, this would, under normal circumstances, be a strong password. But as we're going to talk about in this episode, I'm going to show you why this is not a strong password. Another thing that my son discovered yesterday, and I'm not really sure how to get to it, but he was playing this game where it would pop up like 2 or 3 different passwords, and it would ask you to click on the most secure password. And so based on what the game teaches you, you pick the ones with the numbers and with the special characters, and that are at least 8 characters. So at the very least, at least my son in particular is learning that an 8-character password with numbers and special characters and capitalization makes for a quote-unquote strong password. But today we're going to explore why that's not always the case. So let's start with the story. Let's move this out of the way. What is a good password? I just defined all that, and let's go to the story. Okay, so about a year ago, I was teaching a group of students how to use Tinkercad to create objects that could later be 3D printed using the printers in the class. In order to use Tinkercad at the time, students were required to create their own personal accounts to log in. And so the teacher sent out a letter asking the parents, hey, help out your students create an account because we're going to be using it in class. And so most of the parents, I assume, helped their students create those accounts. Now, students were tasked with creating their username and password. And since the parents helped, one of two scenarios happened. A, the parents set it up completely, and they either A, used their normal accounts that they use for like their banking and other social media accounts and stuff like that. So the kids now had that information. Or B, the passwords were so complex that they had to write it down, right? And then the kids brought it to school. So let's continue with the story. So when it was time to start the class, a handful of students knew their username and passwords, right? So these kids were logged in, they're ready to go, they're ready to start creating. But the other 85% of the students, they completely forgot their passwords. So they either A, had to call their parents to remind them of the password, or B, they took out a piece of paper out of their backpack that had the password on it. And some of these passwords, you can tell, they weren't really like passwords that the kids would have created, because they were just weird, strong passwords that like an adult would come up with. And then the other passwords were just like, you could tell that the kids made them because it was like all about Superman and things of that nature, right? So they were like not complex passwords, and then so we had a big variety of the different types of passwords. But nonetheless, a lot of them were written down, or they just had some physical access to that password. And if you remember from our first couple of episodes of the podcast here, one of our biggest recommendations is to never write down a password. So today we're going to talk about how to create a safe, strong, and easy password that is, well, easy to remember, but not easy to hack, and it's safe and strong. Okay? All right, so let's get into the meat of today's topic, and this is going to be how to create a safe, strong, but easy to remember password for your kids. All right, so like all good passwords, the same principles apply to adults as they do for students. So what makes a good password for students or your child? Well, let's take a deep dive. Passwords need to be safe. That means that at a minimum, they need to be at least 8 characters, and they should not be one of the default passwords from the list that we've shared in previous episodes. So things like password and password 123 and 1234567 those are not strong passwords. They're easy to remember, and they're great for a kid because they don't have to write it down, and it's like, hey, my password's password, and it's kind of funny to them. But don't do that, right? Having the word password in their password is not safe. So that's something to not do. Next, the password needs to be strong. That means that the password should at least be 15 characters long. While 8-character passwords are safe, if you remember from one of our previous episodes, you'll remember that they're not the strongest of passwords, right? They are very, very easily hackable. They can be basically cracked in seconds. So 8 characters are what most tools and what I'm seeing on the internet as a recommended character length, but that should be considered your absolute floor, right? That should be your minimum. You should never have just 8 characters. I highly recommend you bring in 15 characters into your password. So most importantly though, I think, and this is very relative, it really can apply to anybody, but specifically for kids, the password needs to be easy to remember, right? If the password is super complex and it's just characters and special characters and numbers and random assortments of letters, then the kids are going to write them down. And that's going to defeat the purpose, because when you have a password that's written down, it is very susceptible to just being taken, right? And you do not want that. So you want to have a password that is easy so that your kid can remember it and not have to share it with their friends or not have to blurt it out loud, because it's going to be something that they just remember. So now that we rambled about all that, what does a good password look like, right? Well, it's simple. After I realized that all the students were having their password, what their students were like with their passwords, I decided to teach them how to make a good password. And if you never heard of this, let me bring up this example here. We'll go into this mode here. So, battery. It's called battery horse staple. Password strength XKCD. And so here's a perfect example: troubadour and 3. And this is a good descriptor of like basically what's happening with password strength, right? So you have a capital, you have substitutions, right? So the 0 for an O and a 4 for an A, and I'm not sure what this 0 is representing, or O here, but these are good. This would be a strong password, right? So we have a special character, we have numbers, we have capitalization, it's great. And it's not a common word, right? It's gibberish. Trouble for door and 3. And so this would be a great password. So, and not to get into too many of the difficulties here, but it's super easy to guess. It would take 3 days to get this password guessed on a software that cracks passwords. And it's super hard to remember, right? So this would be, was it trombone? Was it troubadour? Was one of the zeros? Oh, the 0. Was there a symbol, right? So it's super hard to remember. Now, a safe password, right? And we're just going to look at this here. Correct horse battery staple. 4 dictionary words, right? They're random 4 common words. And if you're going to remember from our first episode, we talked about dictionary attacks and how dictionary attacks were just basically don't have common words in your password because they can be cracked super easily. And you'll notice here, and then this kind of counterintuitive because you have 4 dictionary words in your password. But this is what's called 44 bits of entropy, and it's gonna take 550 years to guess or to crack. So I don't know about you, but I don't plan on lasting 550 years. So it's super hard to guess. But guess what? It's gonna be super easy to memorize it. You got a horse, you got a battery, and we got the correct horse in the staple. So that's kind of just what I want to talk about here. Is these passwords that are super safe, that are super duper strong, right? They're gonna take decades to break. They're gonna be easy to remember. So let's jump into it a little bit more. So the passwords need to be easy to remember. That means that the password needs to be something memorable to your student or your kid, right? This means that it's got to be something that's important to them, or at least something that they can relate to, because it's just going to be something that's easy to remember and pull out of their memory bank. So the first thing you want to do in creating a strong password is to pick something special to you or to them. This should be fairly easy to determine because kids are passionate about a lot of stuff. So pick something that they like, and let's move on to the next phase. So passwords and password length is going to be one of the key component, right? Because if you just have like the password, that's something easy to remember, like Spider-Man. Spider-Man is technically a dictionary word, and you wouldn't want to have Spider-Man. And Spiderman is 9 characters, so okay, so at least we're past the 8 character. But again, super easy to remember, but not very safe and not very strong. So how do we make it strong? Well, we want to add characters to that, right? So let's stick with this topic of Spider-Man. So if you remember from a few minutes ago, I recommended that they be at least 15 characters long. And that's because the longer you get on the password, the more bits of entropy you're adding, which means that it's going to become a lot harder for that password to be cracked. So let's just add more characters to that Spider-Man. So we're going to get to it just a second. But the last thing is add some numbers and special characters to do that replacement of like the 3s and the A's, right? So that's just going to make things a little bit more complex, but still easy to remember. So what does all of this look like? So this would be a very strong and secure password where it would take a good amount of time to crack. And just to find out how long it'll take to crack, because I'm never going to use this password, we're going to take this password and put it into our password cracking software. So there's a Russian company, so I don't recommend you do this on your personal passwords, but we're just doing this. How long it takes to crack password. Not Reddit. Tool. Okay, so there is a password. Oh boy, this is what happens when you're doing live. Okay, so let's just put it in here. We're going to take the password that we just came up with. My favorite is Spider-Man. And it would take 26 years. It's like a long time to crack that password. Versus just Spider-Man. With the 3 am at, and that would take 24 days versus 26 years. So you can see how just adding that complexity is going to make your password super duper strong, right? So this password right here, 26 years to crack. The password's easy to remember. It's very long. It has special characters. It's got capitalization. It's got numbers. You have officially created the best password your child can have. No more need to write it down, because my favorite is Spider-Man. You get him used to this camel hump style of capitalizing every first letter of the word. And now you don't have to worry about your password being shared with anybody, because they're not going to write it down. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Passwords don't have to be challenging for kids. As you can see, just make something that is memorable to them, and use our guide here as a guide to making a strong and secure password. In our next episode, we're going to cover what to do if your password is hacked. So if you've ever been a victim of a hacked, or if you've ever had an account that's been hacked, like a Yahoo, or I guess who else had them? Like Verizon, I believe, got hacked recently. A few companies keep getting hacked. There's actually a website I'll show you in the next episode where you can go to see if your email has been hacked, or your account has been hacked, and it'll show you like all the different breaches that have happened, and where your password has been used or could have been used. So we'll give you some tips and tricks for how to handle your password situation if you think you've been hacked. So with that said, thank you very much for listening. Please check us out on social media. Let me flash these back up on the screen. We're really trying to grow here, and we're trying to provide a valuable service for you. We're sticking with the password theme for now. I got about another 7 to 10 episodes in the theme, but expect a lot more cybersecurity related content. Sorry about that. And we're going to be also venturing into mobile. I just recently started doing an Android app where I'm just getting my feet wet there. We're going to be doing tutorials on like AR and VR stuff. I'm pulling out the Oculus out of the closet, and we're going to start doing some virtual reality. Apple, don't have my AirPods with me right now, but they have spatial awareness now. So when you put your AirPods in your ears with the AirPods Pro, it can track your head movement. So there's a lot of new opportunities coming out in the mobile space that I'm really curious and want to get my feet wet in. So once I wrap up this series, we're definitely going to be growing this. So I definitely have maybe, 500 to 600 episodes worth of things to talk about. So if this stuff interests you, feel free to share with your friends. If you have any kids at home, or if you have a neighbor or anybody that has kids, or even for yourself, right? We're going to be talking about the password, this same topic, but for adults, which is going to be very similar. The same principles are going to apply, but probably just not Spider-Man based. I don't know, maybe you like Spider-Man, but in the future, we're going to be having a lot more of these episodes, and hope you enjoyed it. So please share it with somebody, help them